Hello, everybody. I'm Riley Woodall, and welcome to the Toss-Up. We're into the month of April, and summer is right around the corner, which means it's time to talk about America's favorite pastime, baseball. We'll break down everything from opening weekend, diagnose contenders and pretenders, and make some way too early season predictions. Stick around because it's all next on the Toss-Up. Well, the summer breeze is slowly trickling into the atmosphere unless, of course, you live in Indiana, a state that can never make up its mind about the weather. But regardless, the 2024 MLB season is here. Fans of all ages are packing ballparks to the brim dressed in their favorite players' jerseys, donning ball caps, sporting baseball gloves, waiting for a foul ball to come their way to make a lasting memory and rooting on their teams. It was an action-packed opening weekend, and the fun is just getting started. Joining me in the studio, a phenomenally talented group of baseball heads, Alex Hines, Amanda Foster, and making his toss-up debut, Henry Thuss. Guys, baseball's back.
Thank God.
I know.
Exactly.
It's great to have it back.
One of the best times of the year, and we'll jump right into it. The biggest takeaways that you guys have from a wild opening weekend, to say the least.
I will start. I think the biggest thing that I took from all of those games is that it's just going to be such a fun season. We already saw a couple fights from a couple different teams, so there's a little bit of chippiness that's already going on within the first 48 hours. There are a lot of teams that I think are kind of under a lot of people's radar, a lot of really good players spread out all across the country. I think it's going to just be a great season and then a great postseason.
Yeah, I'll keep going. Getting a little more specific, I think a team that came in last year and was really good was the Seattle Mariners, and they barely missed the playoffs. I think the Seattle Mariners have been the team for the last few years who we've said, hey, they can make the playoffs, and they just haven't done it yet. Even though they did 2 years ago, they should have done it last year. I think this year the Seattle Mariners need to trade for a big bat at the deadline. I think Bryce Miller should be shipped off, and we should get someone like Jose Ramirez or Paul Goldschmidt. I'm talking top-of-the-line veteran player. That will get the Mariners deep into the playoffs.
I mean, my first takeaway was, man, I missed baseball.
That's so true.
I mean, just having a full slate of games on
I
a
would
whole.
never guess that with you.
It's always a surprise. But I mean, just to have baseball on for a whole weekend already, I'm already back hooked. But my big takeaway was the three big newcomers coming from overseas, from Japan and Korea. I mean, Yamamoto, Imanaga, and then Jung-Hoo Lee going to the Giants. All three had really great starts. If you take away that one start in Korea for Yamamoto, I'm sorry, Henry.
Move on.
5 innings, 5 strikeouts, scoreless outing in his home debut. Imanaga, 6 innings, 9 strikeouts for the Cubs in their opener. And then Jung-Hoo Lee, 7 of 24 to start the season. Already is his first home run with the Giants, and I think he was the one question mark maybe of those three coming over from the KBO. He's lived up to the hype, and it just goes to show, remember, these guys are still pros. They've played professional baseball for several years. They're rookies only by Major League Baseball standards.
And we won't talk about this too long, but I do want to mention it. One of the biggest stories in sports, and particularly baseball right now, the Shohei Ohtani situation. Not much is clear right now, but some conversations are being had at the moment.
Right. I mean, we really don't know enough to say anything else about it, but I mean, it is obviously something that has been taking the whole sports world recently.
Yeah, big news. We'll keep an eye on it, but like Alex said, we can't make any predictions. We don't know what's going on, so I think it's safer not to pass judgment on anything right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, all we know is there's multiple investigations ongoing. That's about all you can say on it right now.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, I'm going to go to you, and we're going to zoom in on this season in particular right now. A team that has come in that you have full confidence can pick up right where they left off, maybe even make a postseason run deep into maybe even potentially the World Series.
Well, I'm going to go with the team that was in the World Series in the Diamondbacks, but I was not confident at the end of that season that they were going to be going back to it. Honestly, I think after that season, I wasn't sure they were going to make the playoffs because it felt like that was a magical run that could have been a one and done for them. But their offseason, I think they made some really great moves that fit exactly what they needed as a team. You look at their offensive signings, bringing in Jock Peterson and Eugenio Suarez. They had no power really last year outside of Christian Walker, so that was a huge addition. Bringing back Lourdes Gurriel is important as well after he walked for a moment. And then the pitching staff. Eduardo Rodriguez is certainly an addition to length in the rotation, but the big one for me, Jordan Montgomery, after a lengthy delay in towards opening day, signed with the Diamondbacks, and he's going to be a great addition to a rotation that already had Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen, potentially a good full season of Brandon Pfaadt. This team could be dangerous if they make the postseason, but obviously they're in a really difficult division to do that.
Well, at the same time, too, they're carrying in a little bit extra motivation after the heartbreak of last season.
Exactly.
Amanda, I'm going to go to you for the next one, and this is kind of switching gears. A team maybe that you think is going to take a step back from at least last season's standards that maybe might not live up to what they were a year ago.
So I'm going to go the easy route, and you were pulling out a lot of names. I'm not going to pull out a lot of names, but I'm going to go with the Marlins. First of all, because you have to win games to make it to the postseason, and they have not won a game yet this season. Like, I could leave it at that, I think. Like, that's pretty much it. But I think, in my eyes, last year, they kind of just barely squeaked in. They lost to the Phillies in the wild card series. They didn't win a game in the postseason, and I just don't see it. They're struggling. Obviously, they haven't won a game yet. They're 0-7. I don't think they're going to be able to pull it out, especially with the talent that we see all across the league. I don't think they're quite there this season.
It's simple math. You got to win games.
Right,
like,
right.
Exactly
That's all
like
I'm
you
gonna,
said.
like, I'm not good at math, but I know that. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Henry, I'll toss it over to you. No pun intended. I want to ask you, what do you think is the most underrated team, or a couple underrated teams in baseball that people aren't giving enough credit to right now?
I think my pick, despite them making the playoffs last year, I think the Minnesota Twins are severely underrated. This team last year won a playoff series. They went into Houston. They didn't win. It didn't happen. You weren't beating that Astros team in that time. But the Minnesota Twins last year were 6th in offense, 5th in ERA. That is a combination for winning. I think that team will only get better now that you have a healthy Byron Buxton. You can build around that. I know Royce Lewis is going to be out for 2 to 3 months, but the guys they have around in there, especially in that rotation, that's a very, very good team that could win the American League. So
we're going to zoom out and look big picture. I'll pose this one to the floor. Who do you guys think, or what division do you think is the deepest in baseball this season?
You got it.
I'm going to go with the NL West. I've already talked about the Diamondbacks. The Dodgers are obviously the team to beat, but that Padres team was generationally unlucky last year. I mean, that was a really tough season for the Padres, but they still have some great talent. Fernando Tatis could be an MVP this year, and that rotation made some changes even though they lost Blake Snell. They still have a rotation that, well, I'm not as high on them. They're still good players. And the Giants. I mean, I talked about Jung-Hoo Lee. They've got Logan Webb and Blake Snell if he can put up a good season after that Cy Young year. Those are 4 really good teams, and then you've got the Rockies bottom feeding. But I mean, those are 4 teams. Those are 4 teams that are capable of making the playoffs in some capacity.
I'm going to go with, I think, a division that has 5 teams that can make the playoffs, because that is the deepest, if you can say. I'm going to go with the AL East, which is it's a basic answer because usually that is one of the deepest divisions that we have. But especially this year, I think, given the way that the Red Sox have started out, people were low on them, including myself, and I am a Red Sox fan. They've surpassed my expectations, at least to start. But then you have the Yankees, the Orioles should be very, very good, a very young, energetic team. The Rays, the Blue Jays, like those 5 teams, I think are going to be really fun to watch. And I think, as much as I don't want to, the Rockies, I don't think are going to make it. I think all 5 of the teams in the AL East could make the playoffs and make it a really exciting kind of division for them.
Yeah, you guys took the 2 great picks. Those are phenomenal. I think a division that could be weirdly competitive is the AL Central. Ooh. I'm not saying it's going to be the best, but this could be very competitive. You have a young Royals team that could make some noise. The Guardians have a pitching lab. They will produce sub-3 ERA pitchers. Like, I make pancakes for breakfast. It will happen every day.
Do you make good pancakes?
I do make good pancakes.
Oh, yeah. Do you prefer pancakes or waffles?
Waffles, actually.
There we go.
Their waffles are better.
Good man.
But, and then you have the Tigers, who are always that team that everyone says, hey, this could be the year they do it. And I think this might actually be the year they do it. So they have 3 very good teams in there that can really battle it out.
So we'll put the crystal ball. Sorry, I had a mind blank there for a second. The crystal ball there on the table in front of us. Look ahead to the end of the season. Who do you guys think is going to be the best division leader by the end of the year?
I think the Dodgers will have the biggest gap in any of the divisions. I think a lot of them are so competitive, but this Dodgers team, the roster is so well constructed that they could have a double-digit gap on any other team.
I'd say the same thing. I don't think there's really another viable answer for a lot of people just looking at the talent that the Dodgers have and the talent that is in the rest of the divisions. And I keep talking about it spread out so much, but I think we're really going to see it. And the Dodgers are just leagues above so many of these teams all across, especially the teams in their division.
Alex, you got a different answer?
I mean, I do think it's the Dodgers, but just to be, I will be different
Okay,
just for
good.
the sake of being different. No. I wish. I'm going to go with the Braves. I mean, that offense is phenomenal. It's going to stay phenomenal. It's pretty much unchanged. The pitching staff is the only question that I think is the difference between the Dodgers and them. They can really churn out some guys that have good seasons when healthy, but I think the health of their starting rotation is the only thing that would hold them back from being pretty dominant in that East.
Yeah.
Real quick, before we go to break, I just want to kind of look way, way down the line. Way too early to tell. We just started. But who do you guys think are going to make the World Series and who's going to win it?
I'll start, I guess. I know we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. We're kind of a little bit on the same page. I think the Braves are going to be one team that are going to make it. You just talked about how good they are, basically. And then I'm going to be a little bit, maybe go off book a little bit. And a little bit selfishly, because I just like them and I like the division, I'm going to put the Orioles up there. I have a lot of faith in the young
There we go.
Oriole team with Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. Like, I think they're going to do some really, really good stuff. And so I'm going to go way out there and say that they're going to beat the Braves and win the World Series. So.
I love it.
Thank you.
I think the Braves and the Astros are going to play. You can't bet against the Astros. I know their bullpen has struggled early. The Braves lineup 1 through 9 is the best in baseball. They have a great rotation when healthy. Braves over the Astros in 5. Chris Sale closes it like he did for the Red Sox in 2018.
I love
we
Chris
go.
Sale.
I'm going to go different completely. I'm going to go with the Dodgers. I think they have a powerful enough team that they finally will. We'll see if they can finally get the monkey off their back a little bit, with the exception of 2020. But in the American League, Henry, I'm going to go to one of your points. The Mariners are going to make the World Series for the first time ever. They're not going to win it, but they will make it behind an amazing pitching staff. But I do have the Dodgers winning it, Henry. I hope for your sake it does happen.
I hope so too.
But no promises.
I can't, no.
Well, we've spent this time talking about the teams, but coming up after the break, we'll switch it to the individuals. We play a little game to make some early season award predictions. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. See what I did there? Anyway, it's time for Up to Bat. Here's how it works. I got the good old Louisville slugger here. Each person will be given the bat when it is their turn. When they step up to the plate, they have an early season award to hand out. Depending on the quality of their answer is how many runs they score. The person with the most runs at the end is the winner. I will be the judge. Alex, you're up first. You're the leadoff man. Are you ready?
I was never the leadoff man. I didn't get on base enough for that.
You have the AL and NL Cy Young winners.
Well, let's go to the American League Cy Young. I'm going to go back to those Mariners. I think they could potentially have 3 players getting Cy Young votes this year, but the player that I think is going to be at the top of that is George Kirby. George Kirby is elite at painting the corners. He had a 2.5% walk rate, which is just absurd last year. He just doesn't walk guys. It's that simple. He had more walks than more home runs given up than he had walks allowed, which just seems really crazy to think about. So if he can limit the amount of contact overall, because he did give up a few extra hits than I'd like to if he's a Cy Young, but he pitched really well. I think he's going to really break out even further. He's just 26 years old. I mean, I think he will win a Cy Young at some point in his career. I think this year could be the year. National League, I'm going to go with Zach Wheeler of the Phillies. He's been arguably the best pitcher in baseball over the last 3 years.
Have him on my fantasy team.
Oh,
Good pick. Good pick.
there you go.
But since 2021, he's been at the top in Fangraphs wins above replacement. He's been one of the highest guys in terms of strikeouts and innings pitched. Guys who pitch more innings are more valuable than those that don't. Simply outs matter. And I think he's one of the best you're going to get at that. He honestly could have won in 2021. I think he will do it this time around.
You're like Big Papi. You just hit the grand slam. You've got 4. We're going to toss it over to Amanda.
I don't know if I can follow up Big Papi, but I'll try.
You got this. You've got the AL/NL MVP award winners.
Yes. So I'm going to start with NL MVP. I got to go with Mookie Betts on the Dodgers. He, in my mind, is a generational player.
He's so good.
For so many reasons. He can play like any position that you put him at, and he can probably play it better than half the team. So that's in itself. You can put him anywhere on the field, and he'll produce for you. He'll also produce at the plate and hit a whole bunch of times. He can run on the bases. He can steal. He can do everything that you ask him to. He's a leader. He's just fantastic. I think, obviously, you need the Dodgers to do well to win the MVP. The Dodgers are going to be fine. We were just talking about them winning the World Series. So I think that kind of answers itself, whether or not he would be in contention for it. For the AL, I'm going to go with Juan Soto on the Yankees.
Yeah.
Yep.
The fact that he's on the Yankees gives him a big leg up. He's coming off of when he was with the Padres. There's a lot going on. He wasn't really getting along with everybody. He wasn't doing too well. The Padres weren't doing too well. I think everything is coming together a lot better for him on the Yankees. We've already seen it. He just looks like he's enjoying baseball again, and that's a big part of whether or not you can play good baseball. And again, I think the Yankees are set up for a very solid season, partly because of how good he's expected to be with them. So I'm going to go with those two.
Well, we're all tied up. You got the grand slam
yes.
as well. Henry,
Big
can
Papi.
we make it 3 for 3? You've got the AL/NL Rookie of the Year, my friend.
Yeah, so for NL Rookie of the Year, there are 2 guys I was thinking of, and they're both pitchers, and they're both from Japan. Yoshinobu Yamamoto of the Los Angeles Dodgers and Shota Imanaga of the Chicago Cubs. Both had excellent starts to the season if you don't consider Korea. But I think ultimately it's going to be Yoshinobu Yamamoto. The stuff is phenomenal. He's a generational pitcher coming out of Japan, some of the best command you've seen since Clayton Kershaw. And I think Shota Imanaga will give up a lot of home runs, but he will strike out a lot of guys. Ultimately, I think it will be Yamamoto. On the AL side, I think Evan Carter. This is a guy who was called up in September.
Yep, I agree.
He came into the World Series. He was phenomenal. He could have won World Series MVP if Adolis didn't hit nuke after nuke after nuke. So Evan Carter, right now, he's walking way more than he strikes out, which is a great sign looking in the future. This is the guy who can win AL MVP if his teammate Ryan Langford doesn't win it.
Well, it's 3 for 3 across the board, 4, 4, and 4. I'm going to keep it with you, Henry. You're batting third, and you're also batting cleanup. So you're going to start comeback player of the year. Who do you got?
This is a guy who is a inner circle Hall of Famer, only played 82 games last year, Mike Trout. It's crazy to say comeback player of the year because he put up like an 860 OPS in 82 games. I think he's going to come back and put up like a 7-WAR season that we haven't seen since he did in 2022 in only 119 games. He's going to be awesome. Mike Trout is your comeback player of the year. He will play the full season, hit over 40 home runs, over 120 RBIs. He's the guy.
And hoping and praying that he stays healthy. Sure.
Yeah.
I'll give you a 3 on that one, Henry. Amanda, comeback player of the year.
Speaking of health, I got to go with Chris Sale. Unfortunately, as a Red Sox fan, I wish he would be able to make a comeback with the Red Sox, but I don't. It hasn't happened, so it's not going to happen. But I think he is set up. If he can stay healthy, that's the biggest thing for him. But assuming that it is, he just has some nasty pitches. We've seen how good he can be, and I think he is set up very well to be one of the best pitchers in the league.
And that arm angle is just untouchable.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
When Chris Sale is on, you cannot hit him.
No.
Like you watch and you stand there, you're like, okay, cool, I'll go back to the
know what
dugout
to do
now.
with this.
Right. Like you're lucky if you get a walk.
Right.
So.
Well, Amanda takes the lead. She hit another grand slam. She's 2 for 2. Alex, take us home. Comeback player of the year.
Well, if it wasn't for Royce Lewis getting hurt on the second game of the season, I probably would have gone with him. But I'm going to go with another guy that was a top prospect, one of the next big things before he broke his leg last year after just 9 games. I'm talking about O'Neal Cruz of the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yes.
A 6'7" shortstop. I mean, that's crazy in itself.
Why not?
He's got insane power, great speed to go off of it. He's a guy that honestly could have a 30-30 season some point in his career. He could even do it this year, honestly, with the new changes to the bases from last year. If he can keep his strikeout rate down, that's the only thing I worry about with him just as a player over his career. But I think he's going to come back with a vengeance at shortstop for the Pirates and be that piece that they've been waiting for to actually build around.
Alex, you got another grand slam. You've got 8. Amanda's got 8. Henry has got 7. Keep it here. We're to the end of the lineup, 7, 8, and 9. Alex, kick us off. Manager of the year, quickly.
I'm going to go with Joe Espada of the Astros. I know the Astros' expectations are always going to be to win the division. I think they will, so it's not too surprising. But he's a first-year manager coming in from the bench coach position after Dusty Baker retired. That's a big shoes to fill. I think he'll do it fine and win the division once again.
All right, you got a 3. You finish with an 11. Hand it to Amanda. Manager of the year.
Manager of the year. Shout out to my dad, Reds fan. I'm going David Bell. I talked about the youth of the Orioles, how I like that. Also similar for the Reds. I think they could win the division. I think once they get Matt McClain back from injury, he's going to be a massive piece for their puzzle. And then if they can be successful as a team, I think David Bell is a shoo-in.
So that's 3 grand slams in a row. Amanda finishes with 12. Henry,
What can I say?
you are the last one. Manager of the year.
I'm kind of going to go off Alex's talk about the Seattle Mariners, and I think Scott Service can win Manager of the Year. The Seattle Mariners have one of the best rotations, and what do rotations do? They make managers look good. If this rotation performs how it's expected, and then he manages this bullpen to perfection, this Mariners team is going to go very deep in the playoffs. And if he goes to the GM and says, we need a bat, Manager of the Year. Make it happen.
There you go.
There we go. Henry finishes with 10, so the leaderboard is Henry in third with 10 points. Alex comes in second at 11, and Amanda wins it with 12 points. 3 grand
bet.
slams in a row. Yeah, get
There you go.
Yeah.
She is the winner of Up to Bat. Guys, thank you so much for coming on to talk some MLB show baseball. That's going to do it for us here in the studio. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to continue discussion and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUSTV Sports, and give our Toss-Up socials a follow at the Tossup23 and at the Tossup IU on Instagram and Twitter, respectively. With that, as always, be sure to toss it up, find out if we'll knock this one out of the park, and we'll see you next week. God bless.